Here we are today at Tidemark Talks again with a wonderful guest from the Orange Catholic Foundation, Anthony Vultaggio, if I pronounce that the right way. But thank you for joining us, and we're happy to be part of Zill Media's family and get us on the air here, so thank you. Anthony, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great. And offline, we were kind of talking about a few of the themes we'd like to cover today, really about charity or charitable giving, how that fits into tax planning, because a lot of the clients that we serve that are private families with real estate assets are thinking about this generationally. And so what I thought we'd do with some of the new tax laws that have gone on, if you can help educate me, and in turn, this will go out to hopefully a lot of our friends, family, and customers and clients.
Yeah.
So maybe start a little bit with your background.
Sure.
Maybe even before the Orange Catholic Foundation.
Yeah. Well, actually, my background is in wealth management, and most recently, I was on a team member on a wealth management team where we really focused on estate planning and business succession planning. So I worked with a lot of wealthy family and business owners with really kind of these sorts of things. You'd be surprised. The conversations are similar once you get into kind of what do you want this all to mean?
Yeah.
Where do you want it to go?
And that the succession planning kind of creeps up on people because the patriarch will be working his company or his profession for many years, but doesn't think too much about it, and then it can kind of all of a sudden become a big issue.
No, that's exactly right. Especially in generational type businesses, it's grandma and grandpa, and they were the ones getting their kind of nails dirty, working, making the widgets, right? And they worked long hours. They weren't kind of taking big vacations and this sort of thing, and then brought their children into the business, and now they've got grandchildren, and they don't even see themselves sometimes as wanting to retire, right? But succession planning, it's a big deal because one, in many ways, it's their baby,
right?
And so being able to separate themselves, but also so that they feel that the next generation is prepared to take on the challenges, right? And those are big conversations, things that don't happen overnight. Folks really looking at saying, what do I want it all to mean? I don't want my kids to go through this. At the same time, I don't want it to be easy on my kids and grandkids because I want them to work because work ethic was important to me. So it's not just transferring the assets; it's about transferring the values as well.
Yeah, and that's huge. Without exception, some of the prior guests we've had on you've basically described them. So many of them came from the garage to the small warehouse or the manufacturing facility, grew magnificent companies, and had big events, either through that planning or sales or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
So you're in wealth management. And then you transition now to really help. You're the director of charitable affairs for.
Well, really, it's strategy.
Yeah.
But the transition was a big one for me too, right? And folks say, why would you do it? Well, it wasn't something I was looking for. I didn't all of a sudden wake up and say I wanted to work for a foundation. But I had reached a point in my life. I think COVID. Having gone through that experience of COVID and where you really had time to say, gosh, if this is it, what do I want it to mean? And what
sort of evaluate your whole.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks did. And those are the conversations we even had through Zoom with a lot of folks, right? And I certainly was a part of that. And so I wanted more. I was searching for more and more through my faith. And so I had kind of started researching the diaconate, becoming a deacon for the
I didn't know that.
The Catholic
great.
Church,
That's
and
great.
What that process was, and while I was thinking about this and researching it, you got a knock on the shoulder saying, "Hey, we're in a rebuild stage. We'd love for you to come help."
Well, let's get right into it. Let's kind of think about Either the new tax law that's been put in place, or how people start thinking about this. Like you said, it's kind of a life event thing. But maybe just frame the new tax law for us that know it but don't know it.
Well, I think the first thing is really understanding that folks reach this point at different times of their life. It's not even end of life sort of issues. In fact, at Merrill Lynch, my last position, it was not uncommon for folks for this to be very transactional in the sense that, hey, I'm getting ready to sell a large piece of property, sell a building, or sell my business, and it's going to be a big taxable event. So I'd love for you to start developing some strategies with my other team members. And so charitable planning is just one of those arrows in the quiver, but it certainly is an arrow and part of the process. So it really doesn't have to be the big sort of end of life, I'm going to sell the practice.
Right. And if I say it simply, I mean, if your estate is under the exemption amount, and you can go over that a little bit. Sure. That's one thing. If it's over, that's another. I think because that changes people's thinking a little bit. So maybe hit that, how that works, because in our world, in the real estate world, there's different things that occur. Step up in basis if one of the couple were to pass, and so on. But hit sort of the highlights of that, because that's what people are typically thinking about.
Well, I try to keep it really simple. So kind of stepping back, really the first thing is a taxable event. So if you're getting ready to sell, you've got to plan for it, or if something's unexpected and you're sort of forced to sell. And so now you've got a taxable event. So what do you do? How do you react to it? Most people like to plan. And most business owners I've never heard a business owner say, hey, I don't want more ideas. They're always looking for ideas to approach. So some of it is very practical, or,
So in other words, somebody's owned a building or an asset. It can be any and it's appreciated to a very large extent. And now all of a sudden there's a need to sell it for whatever reason. Yeah. And there's a big tax So now it gets on the radar.
Now it's on the radar.
Okay.
Right. But think of it this way too. You have folks who have a big portfolio of real estate. There's always one or two that are kind of ones they wish they could get rid of, but they don't because
right.
of the capital gains, right? And in fact, there's so much equity in it, they are trying to kind of figure it out. And so they start seeking strategies. And so again, that's a moment. So it doesn't even necessarily have to do with even transferring it to the next generation. It could just be rebalancing your real estate portfolio.
So is there an example that hypothetical or real that you could give in that instance where somebody's come across an event that's turned good? In other words, they or an example.
This was one in the paper, so it's not even a big secret. You could it was covered in Dan Snyder, the former owner of the Washington Redskins. He had a sale of the football team, and it was a big capital gains event. And he had a property, a $35 million mansion that he had on the market for a long time. It was kind of hard for him to sell. And his CPA gave him the idea to, why don't you just donate it? You're going to only aggravate your tax problem by gaining more. You're going to get a lot more by donating it. So he donated it, got fair market value for it, and it went to the American Cancer Society. And that kind of gift is a beautiful gift to an organization like that. It's transformational, right? The research, it was important to him to have cancer research done. And so
excellent.
He did a lot of good with something that was a little bit of a pain in the neck for him, would have made his problems worse. And he thought, why not do good with it? And that's kind of how it started for him.
Right. That's super interesting too. But so like in that case, and this may be a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it. So the Cancer Foundation takes over the asset, and then he gets the credit for that, and then they are in the position where they go ahead and sell it. They just step into his shoes, basically.
Well, so I try to keep it really simple, but at the end of the day, you get fair market value.
Yes.
For donating that real estate, and now they own it, and now they get to decide what they do with it. They hold it, they use it for whatever purposes they have, and so it's up to them. But now they've given that, and when they go to sell it, they don't pay any capital gains on it. So I mean, that's just how the IRS has set that up. So folks will donate to nonprofits and to do the good work that they do.
Yeah, very nice.
But that's a classic example of, you may have something in your portfolio that you kind of want to get rid of, and maybe looking for solutions. Just donating outright might be the way to go. Get fair market value for it. What's one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but you may not even be in a situation where you want to donate the whole thing, or you may not be in position to donate the whole thing. You're looking for some deductions. You may be very deduction driven and saying, this property I really want. So in our case, I really would like the church, the Catholic Church, to have this property for one reason or another, and I really would like for it to stay because it's close to the church, or it could, whatever it might be. And they say, but I need some income from it. Then it becomes kind of almost academic. How much of a discount or how much of a deduction do you need? Do you need income from it? What some of these kinds of questions, and so just real life case.
And you mentioned that the other day. So there's a lot of tailoring of the donation. That example, in fact. So somebody says, I'm really interested in this charity. They can take one of the assets that they own and essentially give it to that charity, gaining whatever deductibility that is. And then they may want, through their lifetime or their spouse, the income from that asset to remain.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
In fact, if people really realize that they have the power to sort of self-direct to their favorite charity some of their tax money, they would take advantage of it. They'd want to use it. If I told you could direct some of the money that you would have paid in taxes to your favorite charity, would you want to try to do that?
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who would say no.
Right.
And then if you could save a little bit on top of that, it's doubly yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so it kind of starts from the point where they either have a desire to help, or they realize they need this deduction, or they're trying to maximize income from a property. So, like you said, it's very tailored. There's really no cut and dry.
Does it become more acute when it's above the line, so to speak?
Sure, but for different reasons. Like I said, some people are they need a deduction. They need it today, right? Some are like, I don't need the deduction today, but I'd like to be sheltered from capital gain so I can maximize my income from this property. Right. Another person, it may be, I want to maximize my contribution. So I'm going to give a gift, and I want to maximize it. So how do I do that? And for others, it's a rebalance. Yeah. Hey, I've got to rebalance my stock portfolio. I've got to rebalance my real estate portfolio, and I've got some tax implications. How do I do it smart? So it's not just about giving more; it's about giving smarter, more efficiently.
Well, I think we went through that, my wife and I, because when Christ Cathedral was being renovated, it was really a stake in the ground for Orange County, and what a beautiful facility and a legacy from Dr. Schuler.
Sure.
And it was just one of those things that it was fun getting involved with, and in the process getting involved. So if someone has these questions, what's the best course? I mean, they could call you or anybody, but somebody that's in their financial advisory, is that?
No, those are great questions. Ultimately, it really, the foundations, be it community or religious foundations like ours, we're really set up to be able to have those conversations. And a lot of times advisors either, because it is kind of specialized, so they're either not knowledgeable of it or comfortable with it, or they're knowledgeable of it, but realize that it takes a long time to kind of work with families on these types of things. So really supporting those advisors is really important. But having those conversations, people don't know what they don't know, and they need someone that they feel they can trust to even begin these conversations. What's even possible? And when you open up the world of what's possible and how you can tailor it to exactly to what you're hoping to accomplish, it actually is kind of fun, and people, it's very rewarding.
I think that's a great point. I think that at the beginning, so let's bring this to practicality.
Sure.
I think at the beginning, when you're getting married or you're raising a family, you are in the building mode.
Yeah.
And what happens, at least I can speak from my own perspective, is we become protective of our wife and our children and our family, and we want to do the very best we can.
Yeah.
As we gain more assets and we're more comfortable with that protection, the interesting thing about that can turn a little bit to, maybe it's the wrong word, greed, but I harboring this protecting.
Sure.
And so you get to the point then when the kids are raised and you're starting to look at grandkids that this legacy mindset comes into play, right?
That's right.
And you weirdly have to start thinking a little bit about letting go. Yeah. But it is fun. It's interesting. It's kind of a switch as you start thinking about it and start thinking of your assets, especially the ones like you're mentioning where you could gain from tax planning. It becomes very enjoyable, and doesn't mean the conversations aren't stressful.
No,
because even with spouse, we're trying to make the right decisions,
yeah, of course,
and do the right things,
yeah.
and we don't always agree. So I presume you see a little bit of that when you're counseling.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, back to kind of the transferring of values. A lot of times you reach that point and it's like, I want to see my values continue on even beyond me. Or I want my kids to and my grandkids to sort of have the same values that I do. So how do I impact that? One is certainly family conversations, but also when you're establishing whatever it might be, a donor advised fund, and involving the children, involving the grandchildren, having them be a part of making the decision of where the money goes. That's part of the conversation. So a lot of it is really helping families have conversations that they may not normally have or feel comfortable with, but need to.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I've really enjoyed working with you and all the people down at the OCF is it does open up your mind. Yeah. You become more creative. You become more, and it's helped the thinking and that communication process at home. Yeah. And the one thing I'll say, and we talk about values. One thing I've learned through this process is family. And when we talk about family, we talk about our here family, but I also talk about the Catholic family, which is international, which is all over the world. And I love the fact that a lot of the foundation has international appeal, even though we're here in Orange County. And we have so many wonderful ethnicities and families and cultures.
Very diverse.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. So when we talk about values, I love that. It's like, we have two families. We've got our immediate family, but we certainly have the Catholic family.
Well, it's great. It's great to hear you say that. I feel the same way, and I think a lot of folks of faith feel that way, where they, it's their family, and then their extended family is their faith family, right? And it's not even people that you necessarily need to know. You just know that they're trying to do the right thing or trying to do a good thing, and you want to support them. And we're very fortunate here in Orange County because we do have a very diverse population and community. And so, one of the largest populations of Vietnamese, but also we have 5 different cultural centers, Filipino, Korean.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's amazing. And Mass is said in multiplicity of different languages throughout the whole county. So it is about thinking beyond ourselves, even beyond our own little world here in Orange County, right? Our own little bubble. It's about thinking beyond that because certainly everyone's experience is not like us in Orange County. We're very blessed.
Right. So let's take a hypothetical example. Yeah. If someone's estate has grown they've determined that they're comfortable giving some of their estate away for charitable giving. And let's say it's an estate worth $60 million. So that's what, $30 million over the pure transfer exemption without tax. So if it's $30 million or under, basically if it's a couple, a married husband and wife, that's safe, right? But then they're going to have to deal with liquidity issues on that top $30 million.
Yeah.
So have you seen that where that becomes a very, kind of a financial strategic planning of how much to
yeah, absolutely. Even the first thing in terms of good planning is the liquidity planning, right?
Yes,
and that's usually it's the hardest thing to see when successful wealthy families, you see that they're forced to sell a team or sell a business or a building in a forced sale, in a fire sale, right? It's really hard to see.
Can they even do that in that 9-month period?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they get.
Well, it's a fire sale, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they need liquidity. What do we do? And sometimes even that without good planning, you're not able to take advantage of any of the benefits. And so, in fact, you also then leave difficulties and challenges for the next generation.
Well, you made a good point when we were talking, I think at our office, as an example, like if there is a liquidity event needed, their charitable giving can be part of that tax mitigation alongside of insurance, alongside of just simply saving for the event.
Yeah.
But is that accurate?
No, it's exactly right. It's really comprehensive, right? And so you want to prepare for the liquidity event. You want to be able to pay for the taxes, but then you also want to be able to then transfer the assets that you most want the family to keep. These are the prime properties that we really want to keep in the family forever and in perpetuity. And these are the properties that we would be okay, letting go. And so that's all done in advance, right? Advance of any major issue, advance of untimely passing away. Folks don't realize the hardship they can leave the family they leave behind if they just do some basic planning.
Right.
And then kind of the concept of charity and giving it, whom would you rather most see utilize that property or the assets of that property?
Well, and I'll make a plug for the planning because I recently had a real serious surgery, and you just simply don't know on those all the time. And what happened was, the first step was making sure we're planning. So we updated our trust, the will, and so on. And what happened is the attorney had recommended that we look at the title for various properties, and we did find. And as diligent as we are, we found some inconsistencies, and we made a lot of corrections. So I think that's big. So I think going back to your planning is really big. Is having the planning done whenever you can, and everybody pushes that off. We pushed it off, but when you can, and maybe make it part of your goal planning for a particular year, and do some of that because that's important.
But even just reviewing beneficiaries. Do you know how many times in my practice we saw someone who came in who still had their ex-wife as beneficiary of their life insurance, and tough situation.
No, I was surprised because we had to clean up some bank accounts where they would have been difficult to unlock, without death certificates and all this stuff.
That's right.
Some of this real simple planning is important, and then I go back to people looking at what they might be interested in contributing to. And that typically does follow their values. Yeah. And that takes a little bit of thought because they're busy, they're running companies, they're married, they're raising children, they have grandchildren, so they become busy, and sometimes they don't look outside. But that's a big thing. I mean, you have to start thinking about who aligns with my interests at a minimum.
Yeah. Well, it's that late night staying awake, with some surgery or something coming up where you start to think about these things and say, gosh, what would I want to see happen? We all know we're not going to be here forever. And so what's important to us? If these are my values, a lot of folks looked at some of the cultural wars going on just recently and saying, gosh, I wish it was this, I wish it was that. Well, we all play a part in that. We all play a part in that with not only our time, but with our dollars. $1 a vote. Well, the same thing is true when we pass on. We want to continue the values of the things that we think are important and help people in the way that we think is best for them.
Well, and the big plug here, and I'll say it, is one is the planning, two is the soul searching for what aligns with you, but three is what you were saying about creative tax planning.
Yeah.
Because you made a great point the other day. We were talking about just pick any number that's above the exemption, in the exempt, whatever. But if it's going to be taxed or an event, a sale. So let's say you have a $5 million tax liability.
Yeah.
Well, if you plan for that and you can get charity involved, essentially, for simple math, half of that could go to the charity and half to the government rather than all of it. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
You've probably seen things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I try to keep it really simple. And so just telling folks, if you could divert some of what you would already be paying in tax, but divert it to a place that you feel very passionate about and you feel it would have the best use of those tax dollars, would you do that? They say yes. And if you could save some taxes as well as doing that, would you do that? They're like, yeah, doubly as well. So it's really thinking that. And it has to be done in advance. The IRS allows for these things if they're done in advance and if they're done in a way that, according to their rules. But they've been around for a long time, these strategies. Nothing's really that new. Even with the new tax law, nothing's really changed in terms of
right.
It's the same. It's a basic thing. I've got either capital gain or I got ordinary income tax coming. So how do I deal with it? And so if you're in the middle of something, a transaction,
and either one of those two can be sheltered, correct?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily that it's sheltered. It's just that it can be used to reduce.
Or reduce.
Yeah.
Reduce.
Right.
Yeah.
And so so it's about doing it in advance. A lot of these strategies do not work, post sale. They don't work, after the fact. They work before.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is that has to be done in conjunction or when something is being contemplated for sale.
That's right.
Rather than after the fact.
Well, and it's understanding that it's not just like I gave the example of Dan Snyder. He gave the whole house. Well, he could have given a portion of the house. Could have given fractional shares of the house. He could have discounted the house and the charity bought it at a discount. And then the fair market value plus the discount becomes what the gift is, right? But it's a way for them to help that organization to get into something, but they still need the money. So if you have property that's indebted, well, that eliminates certain options that are available to you. But if you have no debt, then you have other options or more options that are available to you. If you're looking to get income, so you're not just looking for a deduction, but I want to maximize my income for me and my children for a period of time off of this, same thing.
But using that example, so I understand it, and so if let's say it's a $30 million net asset,
sure,
that is given to a charitable foundation. Mm-hmm. And if I apply a simple 5% return on $30 million, if that asset is sold and goes into the foundation pure, $30 million, then that foundation technically, if they don't touch the $30 million or they reinvest it, could have about a $1.5 million or more or less, of course, but to them in perpetuity.
It's transformational.
Wow.
Right? This is really transformational.
Huge.
But in your example, let's say you want to sell the property, but you still want the income from it. And then after you pass or after a certain period of time, you're okay with it going to the charity. Right. Well, that's a charitable strategy in and of itself. There's a charitable trust that you can place the property in. Then it could be sold, no capital gains. It's bypassed, and then you receive income off of that trust. And then after a period of time,
Oh, I see. It can be, once it's donated, it can be,
well,
it
you
can
don't have
change
to,
its form.
Yeah,
It can change its form. Okay.
yeah, but it doesn't even have to be donated at the beginning. You just put it in a trust, waiting for you to pass or waiting for some
Okay.
particular time.
Okay.
But meanwhile, you're getting income from it.
Okay.
But you get to sell the property without that capital gain because of what you intend to do in the future, right? That's just a charitable trust. Very simple tool. Now, you get a lot more complex than that, but that's how it works. And so, again, you want the income. You want to maximize your income. You're taxed on it as you receive the income, but that big one-time capital gain isn't there because you intend to give whatever's remaining to the charity when you pass, and that's how it works.
How to hit the basics again on the tax law? Just what should our listeners think about in terms of going back to what can get transferred, non-tax, what will start getting hit? Just go through the basics so people know what because they can calculate in their mind where they're at with their estates.
Well, we had the sunset provision that was coming up, and then we had a change in administration. And so then the law changed in terms of the exemption. But I tell folks that could change again. That could change in the future. And so there's a certain amount that look at the kind of growth some of this real estate has had over the last 10, 20, 30 years. Wasn't expected, right? And so if you have something like that, all of a sudden there's a doubling or tripling. Well, now you have those issues of liquidity, like we said. Now you have those issues. So you have to anticipate really what's going to happen in the future. That's the first thing. Second of all, if you're even close to what the exemption is, then you may want to be able to utilize some of that exemption now while you're living. You can do that, right? You can.
How do you mean?
Well, because you can say, hey, I'm using this now to pass on to my family prior to me passing.
Oh,
and
I
so
see.
reduce it when I pass.
Yes.
But now you're freezing the size of the estate. All the growth is outside of your estate. There's all kinds of wonderful reasons, right?
Yeah.
Well, same thing. You can tack on some charitable planning on top of that as well, because I may not need all the income.
And what I was driving at too, though, was it goes back to self-analysis, family analysis, and then because even if it's below, what is the exemption now per spouse? Is it $15 million per?
Well, it was about 13.6,
13.5 or something, 13.6, yeah.
And then went up a little bit now with this new bill.
So let's just say that some self-analysis gone, and let's say it's well below. So in other words, there's no real estate tax that the assets can plan, but it still goes back to this idea that people can make sure their will, their trust. If they're interested in giving charitably, they can still do that, and because it becomes part of their legacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it becomes more dramatic, where you get your name on Hoag Hospital, or or a billboard here.
Yeah. But you maximize your gift, right? You maximize your gift, so you make an even bigger impact, which is why you're doing it in the first place.
Right.
But in the instance, like you said, a lot of folks will say, I'm going to leave this property for after I pass. But the IRS says, well, if you're willing to make some of these arrangements in advance, we'll give you living benefits. We'll give you benefits, deductions now for what you're going to do in the future.
Fantastic.
And so, if you leave it just as a bequest, you get kind of nothing for it. I mean, you get the good, knowing that you did good with it, certainly not discounting that, but if you could get benefits for it now by making the arrangements in advance, why wouldn't you do that?
And one of the things we've done, because we have a pretty good-sized real estate audience, is work with clients when they have a partial interest in a property. And let's say it's a limited partner interest or whatever the case might be, that can be discounted.
Yep.
There are a lot of strategies, legal strategies, that can help with the size of the estate and some of those moving parts that go into this planning. But ultimately, it is super critical for them to be connected with the right advisors, the right foundations, so they can come into this planning phase.
Well, think of that. You brought up an excellent example. It's not crazy to think here in Orange County you'll have 10 investors in a $100 million building, so they all own 10 million apiece in some kind of LLC or the like, and now they want to exit. They want to exit out of that. How do they do that?
How do you do it?
And now you've
Right.
got capital gains to deal with.
Right.
Yes, it's going to be discounted, but you don't have controlling interest. So it's not worth the same as it would be. And so what do you do? Those are the kinds of conversations.
And we've gotten into that because sometimes they find they can't get out. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they can get out very easily. So there's some of this planning
and sometimes you could utilize it as a possible donation, right?
Oh, true. Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden there is an exit. Now, of course, it's based on the agreement. It's based on there are a lot of several factors, but it is one of those things you consider. So you look at that, or you look at it, in terms of income. There's so many things, but unless you really talk to professionals about it and get opened up to the world of it, it seems non-existent. You wouldn't even think about, talking to someone like myself in advance. Well, they're just going to take the money and put it into whatever it is they do. No, it's really the furthest from the truth.
Which is exciting, actually. You can be more involved, be more. It gives you that self satisfaction that your efforts and your work and your lifetime went to good, and that's awesome.
Awesome. When you look at folks of means, they don't see their donation as a gift. They really see it as an investment. Yeah. Because they're investing in the future of the church or in the future of youth. Formation or ministry. They're in homelessness. They're investing in solving this problem. They don't really see it as a gift. They want to see it as something. So they do want to know that it's being used for the right reasons. There's transparency.
Good point. Yeah,
that they have some way to help direct. That it can't be used for something else that was not intended. Right.
Excellent. Yes.
But that all goes to kind of talking to someone about it, getting involved, and really being able to see the fruits of your labor, of your investment into the nonprofit world, to achieve what you're hoping to achieve.
Well, and one plug, you're here, and I'm going to make a plug for OCF, is one of the things that I had soul searched on, and I benefited from Catholic education at the primary level in high school for a time. And what was amazing at the primary level was I call it the donated hours of the nuns, priests, and teachers, basically, that are raising me for free. Mm-hmm. They are not asking for anything other than, have enough to eat and so on and so forth. Yeah. And what a gift that is. And that's one of the things I've enjoyed, and my wife and I, turning some of that back around to OCF, because in a way we feel that we're repaying that great gift they gave us.
Paying it forward, the giving back.
Yeah.
Also giving an opportunity for the next child to be able to have the same thing, right? And so, the Orange Catholic Foundation is a foundation that's set up to be able to help all the parishes, all the ministries, all the Catholic schools, and our donors. To journey with them, to walk alongside them, to educate them, to give them these ideas, for them to come to fruition. So really, we're there to be of service, and to walk with folks. And I'm in this kind of work too because I see the transformational change it can have. But for all of the folks that are listening to this that aren't Catholic. Utilize it for the things that are important for you.
Right.
Go talk to folks at your Hoag Hospital. Go talk to folks at your alma mater. Go talk to they can help you kind of walk through this process. But it's important to take advantage of it and to learn it and and to make the most out of it. For yourself, can be a win-win.
Yeah.
Charity can be a win-win. That's really that's the message. Everyone can win. And, donate. It's smarter to donate appreciated assets than it is just to donate cash.
Right. Right. For sure. And the other thing is we all pay enough taxes in our lifetime, and and any great tax planning alongside of it is super important. So, have you been involved in any client stories that you can share that just kind of made you feel good, or a particular person or somebody that donated? I mean, is there anything, and then we'll close it out, but I just thought, if there's anything that comes to mind.
Yeah. No, just really quickly, it was a story of a lady who really had gone through a very challenging life. She had gone through divorce. She had gone through a losing of her only child, then getting remarried and then widowed. And her life had been like this, but her faith was so strong, and that she really leaned on her faith and on her relationship. And she is so full of joy. She's such a wonderful person to be around. And so she had this beautiful piece of property that she's like, I really want it to go to help strengthen marriages so that, the divorce rate could go down, and that children don't have to go through that if they don't have to. And I really want to support widows because I know I've been through this, and I know how much it's meant to me, and I want it to mean that for them. And so we're
great alignment. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And it's such a joy to see this come to fruition, that her property is going to be used for exactly what she's hoping for. And that she can do it while she's alive. She's seeing the benefit of it.
Yeah.
She's seeing the fruits of her labor and going, wow, I'm making a difference, and this helped me, and now I know it can help others.
Yeah. And you said it earlier. It's kind of interesting that we have this opportunity in our lifetime with the freedoms we enjoy and everything to give to those who, what a beautiful story with, supporting marriage, supporting, family, widows, because that is the future of our society. Yeah. It is the future for our children, their children's children. So we're going to keep doing what we can to support OCF. And certainly we open this up to anything, any questions that they might have. They can get on Orange Catholic Foundation and find you under team members, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
write in with questions. Happy to help, even for other organizations. Really, it's about doing good and doing more of it. And the world is a better place for folks like yourselves that think about something other than just yourself.
Yeah, and I can't thank Bishop Van and Kathleen Hurt and you and everybody for great support.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure being here and talking about this, but also being able to be a part of your story. And
thank you.
So I'm grateful.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it.